Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'll be walking you through an exciting project, a SQL query and email generator app. This is built using Python, Streamlit, MySQL and OpenAI. This app allows user to run SQL queries through a chatbot interface, and it generate the responses based on the queries, and you can also generate the emails based on the query results. Let's dive in. So the project overview is this project consists of three key components. One is SQL app.py, LLM agent.py, generate email.py, and like .env file and requirements.txt file. So SQL app.py, this is the main Streamlit application. This handles the user interface. LLM agent is to initialize a SQL agent, like an AI agent that interacts with the SQL database using LangChain. Generate email.py is a module responsible for generating the emails using LLM. So first thing is let's see SQL app.py. So this program, as I told, this is the UI. So here we are importing all the required libraries. So I'm using SQL Alchemy, Streamlit, and the other importing the methods from the other files that I have created. So first we are setting the title, and then we are initializing the session. Um, so in Streamlit, session state is a way to store and persist variables across the rerun of the app. Since Streamlit runs the script from top to bottom on each user interaction, the variables normally reset unless stored in session state. For example, if we are clicking a button, then the execution of the code starts from the beginning. So again we are clicking another button or doing another interaction with the UI, again the entire code is run. That's how Streamlit works. So in this case, if we have initialized certain variables, when the code will rerun, all the variables are going to be set again. So to avoid this, to maintain the variables across the sessions, we are using session state. So here I'm initializing the session state. First thing, um, there are certain variables like query result, and database connected, email generator, email query. So first we need to initialize everything. Then load.env is to load the environment variables. So this is the .env file. This file has all the environment variables. So once we load the environmental variables, we are loading the OpenAPI key and the database credentials from the environmental variable. So I'm creating a dictionary called dbconfig. So dbconfig is like a dictionary which has key value pair, keys host, and corresponding value from the .env file. So this is the setting up of environmental variable. So yeah, now session state management, it ensures that the previous session data is cleared and stored efficiently. So then encoded password, here we are using code plus library because the password has @, it was creating an issue, so I had to encode the password. Then we are setting all the session variables. So whatever we just created dbconfig, we are just setting it into a session state variable, and also we are initializing certain variables to true and false. So next comes the method test connection. So test connection is a method which is useful to test the connection to the MySQL database. Since I am using SQL Alchemy here, I need to create a connection string. Connection string is created using all the credentials and the host and port names. So once I'm creating the connection string, I'm creating a engine. So this engine, we will pass the connection string to this engine, and we will connect to the SQL engine. So connection dot execute text select one. So this is a small query I'm executing to make sure the connection to the database is working fine. So I'm printing once this enters the loop, that means the database is connected fine. So we can print alchemy connection successful. So this print statement says that the connection is successful. We are returning a true. Otherwise, if the connection has some issue, there is an SQL alchemy error. So this will gives us the detail if there is a wrong credentials or something. So again, we have a button, test database connection. If I should show the UI looks something like this. mm, let's see. So my yeah so my UI looks like this. So this is the test database connection button. So once we click this test database connection button, it will execute all the codes that I've explained till now, and it will test if the database connection is working fine. So once the database connection is working fine, then we will enter the question, and we will give the question to the database to execute, to construct the query and to execute the query and to give the results. So this is the corresponding method, corresponding part of the code where we are explaining the database connections. So if the database connect, if this button is clicked, then it will enter into this loop, and it will test the database connection. So this is the same method that we are seeing above, test connection, the same method. So it executes and returns the true or false based on the success of the database connection. So if it is success, then database connection is successful. Then we are setting the session variable to true. That means database is connected. After this, the most important thing is to initialize the SQL agent. So this is a method, initialize SQL agent, from the file llmagent.py. So we are passing all the session variables, like we are passing mainly the config variables for the database connection into this initialize SQL agent method. So this will actually create a AI powered SQL agent for us. So once we have the AI SQL agent, it's a system, like AI powered SQL agent is a system that enables user to interact with the database using natural language queries. So natural language queries, in the sense, user is gonna give the input like, give me total order placed in Feb 2024. He need not know the SQL language. He just can use a natural language and ask his question. So once the user is given the input, then the AI processing starts. That means the AI converts NLP to a structured query. So the query that my database can understand. Here I am using MySQL database. So it constructs a MySQL query to the database. This is done using LLMs. We are taking help of LLM and LangChain framework. So this is used for chaining the AI models. So it constructs a SQL query for us. After this, the query will be executed in the database, and the results will be returned. So we will go through this LLM agent in detail. For now, let's keep the flow and just say that this particular method, we are passing the database credentials here, and it will go and connect to the database and execute the query for us. So once we connect to the database, we can say SQL agent is initialized successfully. So this is to initialize the SQL agent. So after this, we have the query execution section. This is a section where we write the SQL queries, like not the SQL queries, the natural language questions. So email ID of customers who placed least orders. So this is one of the question. So we have given a subheader, and yeah, this is one we are setting. As and when we start using the variables, we keep them setting in the session state so that it will be saved throughout our session. So here I am setting the query. Query is the same, the natural language question that we are asking for the database to solve for us. Now we are giving a text area where user can enter his question. That is this text area, this box. So user can enter the question here. So I am saving that in the question, whatever he is entering, I am saving that in a session variable, session state variable. So this part of code is to initialize another session variable which will store the result of the query. So we are setting it for as none for now. So this part is used when to prevent the query for being re-executed. For example, user is asking the same question again. You need not construct a query and go and execute in the database. You can just save the result of the query in a session variable. So this can be used when the user is asking the question. And next is submit button clicked. Next we have a button called submit. Once this is clicked, all the processing starts, like whatever the SQL agent that we have initialized, we will use that SQL agent and we will give it the question that user has entered here to the SQL agent, and the SQL agent will execute, construct a query, execute the query, get the results, and give it back to the Streamlit code in the Streamlit UI. So let's see, again I'm storing it in a session state query. Here in the top we have just initialized the session state dot query variable. So we did not store the user input. We just stored into the user input variable, standalone variable user input. So that user input, now we are storing it in the session dot query. So this part of the code is to check if if the user has entered anything in the text area. If he hasn't entered, if he is executing a blank text area, then it will prompt the user to enter the query. So this is again if the database is not connected or SQL agent is not initialized, then this part of error will be displayed. Else, if everything is fine, so let's go and construct the query and execute it. So if user input is not equal to session state dot query, so this part is to check whether user is not executing the same query back to back. Like when he is executing a new query, then we can take that query and we can send it to the SQL agent. If it is the same query, then we have already the result of the query. We can just display that specific result. So I am saving this user input into another session variable. In the same session variable, state dot query. Then we are having a spinner where it will wait for processing the query. So this is a place, this is the exact line where the agent that we initialized in the LLM agent.py, we are using that agent and we are giving the agent the question that user has entered, and this part of the code will go execute the database. Since the agent object have all the credentials for the database and everything, it will execute the database and return the response for us. So once we get the response, we are saving it in the query result session variable. Then my next part of the functionality is, suppose user is asking a question which has an email ID in it. For example, user is asking email ID of customers who placed leased orders. In this case, I am giving another option for generating an email. So for example, we got a list of users who placed leased orders in the month of February. So we can give them a promotion email or product recommendation email, or we can offer them some discount, uh, like that. So again, suppose we are getting the email IDs of customers who are very active. So for them we can send an appreciation email, or like any kind of email that we want to send it to the user. So yeah, this part of the code is to do that only if the user question has the word email in it, then only the email generator generation option will be enabled. So for that reason, I'm setting the email query session variable. So this will save the user question. So once I save it in the user question into a new session state variable, I will just empty this session state variable so that it will be set to none here, and this is to clear the query once it's executed. So after this is a part where we display the result. So I'm using the subheader called query result, and whatever the result I get from running the SQL agent. So this is the response. Response is stored in this query result. So we are displaying the same to the user, and then we are clearing the session. So this part, as I explained earlier, it will generate the email. So if email generator is not in the session state, so we are initializing the email generated session variable. So after that, we are checking if the query, if there is a query result, if there is a if the query is constructed and we executed in the database and we got the result, then the query result variable will have some value. So if there is a value in the query result, and if there is a text email in the query, like give me the email ID of the customers who placed leased orders, so there should be a email in the query. So once that is there, then there will be a select box activated. So it will give the email type, what type of email you want to produce, generate, like discount, product recommendation, purchase appreciation, or anything else. This doesn't make sense. We can add what we can enhance to whatever more options we want. So yeah, once the user clicks the button generate email, so this email generated will be set as true. So here the user input will be generate. So this is the prompt that I am sending it to the LLM, the email generator LLM, where it will take the input and generates the email for us. So here I am saying generate a email. Email type is nothing but the select box, whether it is discount, product recommendation, purchase appreciation, or anything. So it will generate a email type. So I'm saying generate a, for example, we are saying discount, generate a discount email for the email IDs, whatever the result in our from our query. So we have like email ID who made the least purchase. So there will be email ID of a person. So we are generating the discount email for that particular person. So I'm setting the email tone as formal, email length as medium. So session state email content. So I'm capturing this result. So this is a method from the file generate underscore email.py. So we are sending all the user input, tone, length, email type, everything. So this will generate the actual email and send it back here. So once we generate the email, after generating the email, so we are uh, showing that email in our Streamlit UI. So st.write. So this will show the content of the email. Okay, so let's go back to the place where we are initializing the SQL agent. So this is the place where we are initializing the SQL agent. SQL agent will construct the SQL query and it will execute the SQL query in the database. So initialize SQL agent is in the file llmagent.py. So let's see this file, how it is looks. So this is the file. Here we are using LangChain. We are using LangChain as an API, as an LLM. And we are also using LangChain agents to create SQL agent. So let's see the code in this file. Okay, so we are just giving some kind of explanation over here and provide instruction. So this file actually provide the instruction to the AI agent on how to query the database. So this part is very important because we are constructing a actual prompt that we are sending to LLM. So if we want the LLM to give the precise answer and use a precise and accurate answer, so prompt engineering is very important. So we have to make sure the LLM doesn't hallucinate or just generate the result that is not belongs to the tables or the database that we want to use. So we have to give a instructions to LLM so that it will always adhere to the instructions that we have asked it to do and will not hallucinate. So here we can say relevant piece of previous conversation. So we are saving the chat history here and the question. So this is the format for the custom suffix. So this is the format for the custom suffix that we are sending it to initialize the SQL agent. So we are giving the input here and the thought process is it is imperative that I do not fabricate information not present in any table or engage in hallucination. Maintain trustworthiness is crucial. So this is the instruction that we are giving to LLM. So before generating a query, it will understand what the user wants. So in SQL queries involving string or text comparison like first name, I must use lower. So it will use the function just to be uh, more accurate. We are just converting everything to lower because my database has everything in the lower case, and also the case sensitive comparisons and like operator for fuzzy matching. So and also I'm giving the also I was facing an issue when I was executing this code was when we give a specific instruction to the LLM, it will just generate the query using the tables based on LLM's knowledge. So if I am giving the query give me total number of customers, then it might generate a query call like select count of customer ID from user table, because the LLM might consider the customer can be a user or any other table like which is similar to customer. So customer or customers. So to eliminate this problem, I have given specific instruction to the LLM that I am gonna use only customers, customer, orders and message store as my tables. So if the query involves any other table, I must disregard it and reframe the query only the using only the allowed tables. Okay, so make sure the database and tables you are working with. If the result is empty, then answer is no result. So that to avoid the LLM not to hallucinate the result. So again we are uh, OpenAI API key os.get environmental variable, we are getting the OpenAI API key here. So this function sets up the SQL agent for querying the database. So I'm just explaining in couple of steps what this method do. So this method will validate the database configuration. It will create a OpenAI chat model, and it will build the MySQL connection URL. Then it will connect to the database. It will create a SQL toolkit. This toolkit will allow the LLM to interact with the SQL database, like an interface between the LLM and the SQL database. So this will store the chat history in the SQL database. And last step is to create an agent, initialize and configure a LangChain SQL agent that interacts with the MySQL database. So OpenAI, we are using the LLM OpenAI GPT 3.5 Turbo. So let's see the steps here. So first step is we are this is the method. Inside this method, first we have the required fields: user, password, host, database and port. So these are the required fields for connecting to the database. So again, as we saw in the previous file, we are initializing the dbconfig dictionary. So once we initialize the dbconfig dictionary, so we are just checking if there is a required fields are there. If it is already there, because we are passing the dbconfig as a input variable in this method, so it should already be having all the details here. So this is to validate whether the details are present. So once it has all the required fields, we will go ahead and create the LLM. So we are using, as I told, we are using a chat OpenAI method from LangChain LLM for OpenAI GPT model. Here I am using GPT 3.5 Turbo. I am passing the OpenAPI key, and we are building the connection strings. So we are getting the connection string from dbconfig, and we are building a URL like a connection string here for MySQL. And after this, we are using the SQL database method to connect to the database. So once this method is execute, it will be connected to the database. After that, we are creating a LLM agent. So sorry, LLM toolkit. So you are using the database and the LLM. We are creating the LLM toolkit from whatever the result we got from creating the agent. We are passing it to the toolkit. So after this is the part where we are storing the message history. So conversation buffer memory. This is a method which will store the history. Like when we are sending a query, when we are constructing a new question, so it will append it to the earlier question and it will send it to the LLM, based on which it can create a better and understandable query. So after this, we are creating a once we create the agent, we will return the agent to the main code, that is SQL app.py with all the details here. So with the custom suffix is like whatever we saw here. Yeah, with all the instructions and everything, we are sending the created SQL agent. So this is the part. If we come back, so once the SQL agent is initialized, it will continue to get the result from the SQL agent. And we saw where we are giving our input question, and using that agent, it will agent.run, it will send the user question and it will execute the database, execute the query in the database and get the result. So coming back to the email generation part. So this is a method, generate email from OpenAI. So this is the user input, email tone, email length and email type that we already constructed from the above code. So let's see generate email from OpenAI method. So this is the file which has it, generate email from OpenAI. So here we have the tokens. So LLM, we can send the number of tokens that we are expecting the result in. So I am setting the short email. If user is opting for a short email, it can be 150, medium can be 350, long is 500. So in my SQL app.py, we are using medium. So this is a reusable method that I have created. So this method I'm also using in another project. I'm just saving it where user can generate a email based on the user input. Like we actually have a checkbox, actually have a radio button for the user where he can select short, medium and long. So based on which the email will be generated. So here I'm anyways selecting medium, like to this method itself we are sending a medium. So then we are creating a prompt. So again, whenever we are creating a prompt, we need to make sure to give the clear instruction to LLM so that it won't hallucinate or it won't make up the information. So I'm saying generate a well structured professional email with the following details: topic, tone, length and purpose. These are all the inputs that we are giving. Purpose. So again, more instruction are: the email should begin with the dear name and it should end with thanks and regards, and email is concise yet complete, no unfinished sentences. Because we have a restriction of the tokens that we are using, sometimes the result will be incomplete sentences just to fit in with the token requirement. But here double asterisk is like to emphasize this particular part of the sentence is very important. So it says concise yet complete, is professional and well structured. So here we are using chat completions from OpenAI. So we are creating the model GPT 3.5 Turbo, and we are sending the message role, system role and user role. User role is the prompt, system role is you are a helpful assistant that generate professional emails. So this is the maximum tokens required is the one that we just created here, like assigned the value over here, and the temperature is I have set it to 0.7. So once the email is constructed, it will return. So once that return statement execute, it go back to the SQL app.py. So from here it will save the whatever email is generated from the LLM, and this will show this particular line will show the content of the email. So let's execute and see. So so this is the command to execute this particular file, streamlit run SQL app.py. So once I execute, it will open up a browser window. So this is test database connection. This is the part where we are connecting to the database using our credentials. As I told, credentials is coming from .env file. So let's test the connection. So once the database connection is successful, we also initialize the SQL agent along with it. So this is two separate methods. I'm just displaying it for my understanding that both the steps have been completed successfully. So next we are entering the user question. So let's ask for the database to give us the total number of customers in the table. So for example, I'm asking how many customers are there. So this is my user question. As we remember, once the user question is created, since our SQL agent is already initialized, this question will be passed to the SQL agent and it will take it and construct the SQL query. So the agent will convert the natural language processing NLP to a structured query. So this query is executed in the database and we get the query result and we display it to the user. So there are total 20 customers in the database. So if we are going back to the code, yeah, so here you can see the final answer is 20. So let's ask how many total orders placed. So there are 60 orders placed. Okay, let's go to the code and see. The final answer is 60. So here the email, the actual code is not shown here because this was already executed couple of times and the session variable already has the result. So let's put it in a different way. How many total orders placed get the result from the orders table. So let's do this. Okay, let's go check now. You can see now the query is created. Why it was not creating before is I have already executed the same, I've given the same sentence. Since that is already stored in the session variable, it need not go and execute the table again. So it just gave us the result that was already stored in the session variable. Since now I change my question a little bit, it will that specific question is not there in the session variable, so it will construct a query and it will execute the query. So let's take the exact query from orders and let's go to the MySQL workbench. Let's paste it here and let us execute. So it is, the answer is 60. So this is the answer I have highlighted. This is 60. So what did we get? The answer is there are 60 total orders placed. So after this, let's write a question which has a email in it. So give me the email IDs of the customers who placed least orders. So yeah, now I have a email in my question. If you remember, my code is checking if the user question has email in it, then I need to have another part, another functionality where I am letting the user to generate a format or format an email based on his question. So these are the email IDs that we got. Now if we want to send an email, suppose these were the people who placed least orders, so let's give them a discount. So if I say discount and generate email, now it will execute the email generation part. from the LLM. So this is the template. So here you can have whatever the user name you want. This is the Liam, Paul, Taylor, and Ryan and Noah, because they are the customers who placed least orders. So this is the format of the email. So we have an exclusive discount offer. um, so we are thrilled to offer you an exclusive discount on your next purchase, so we are giving a 15% discount. So these are the we can change all this based on our requirement, the code and everything. So this is the email that's generated. So this is my project. This is about whatever I have done in this project. And the further enhancement for this project is to actually send the email from the same window. So we can add another button, or we can just format this area like we see in the Gmail, like a subject and sender to, and the content of the email. And then we can have a send email button where it will actually connect to the Gmail API and it will send the email for you. So that is one functionality that we can enhance in future. So for now, this is what we have done. Thanks for listening to the explanation and everything. Once I'm working on the further enhancement, I'll come up with more videos explaining the code changes or enhancement I have done. Thank you.